10-second introduction. This is an excerpt from an hour and 11-minute video where I debunk every pro-choice argument. That's linked in this description. If you don't want to watch the entire video, there are time cards to all 31 different arguments in that video's description. All right, those were the worst of the worst. Now we're moving into something a little more substantive. These are the anti-pro-life arguments. Now, each of these arguments will not actually justify abortion. They're simply aimed at tearing down those who support the pro-life movement. First, let's tackle probably the most popular one at the moment. It's that you're not pro-life, you're just pro-birth. Notice that that does not change the moral axiom at the beginning of the syllogism. It doesn't change the science, and therefore it doesn't change the conclusion. This again is what we call an ad hominem fallacy. They're attacking the proponent of the argument instead of the substance of the argument. Therefore, it's fallacious. We can just ignore it. But you know what? You didn't come to this channel just to ignore arguments. We're going to go and accept their premise and see if they're right. Are pro-life people actually just pro-birth? The pro-life movement is made up almost entirely of Republicans and religious people. So let's go ahead and let's look at their activities. Let's look at their giving, at their adoption rates, and let's see, are they actually just pro-birth, or are they, as I'm going to prove, actually pro-life in a holistic sense? According to multiple studies, including the one you see now, Republicans give more than their Democrat counterparts. That does not take into account how effective that money is used. It does not. This is not an argument for private charity over government spending, but it is simply to say that Republicans give more to personal private charities than do their Democrat counterparts. They're obviously not simply pro-birth. One thing you'll hear whenever that statistic is brought up is they'll say, "Oh, that's just them giving to church." All right, but it turns out that Republicans and religious people are more likely not only to give to religious organizations like church and religious charities, but they're actually more likely than secular people to give to secular foundations. What about the topic at hand? What are we going to do with all these kids once they get born when we ban abortion? Well, it turns out that practicing Christians are 150% more likely to adopt than their secular counterparts. And they're 50% more likely to be foster parents. You hear frequently that this argument against straight white Christian yada yada yada.
Notice, I mean, I'm not the first guy to observe this. You have a lot of men of European descent passing these extraordinary laws.
It turns out of those practicing Christians who are over 2.5 times more likely to adopt people, they are disproportionately male. 73% of them are white, and of those they adopt, 63% are non-white. So this idea that they only care about white people, they only care about kids being born, they're not pro-life, they're just pro-birth. This is just not only a logical fallacy, but it's also objectively untrue. They're manipulating you by lying and slandering their neighbors. They have to lie about what abortion is. They have to lie about those who oppose it in order to manipulate you into supporting it. Now, let's go ahead and try to steel man the argument. I went at it hammer and tongs. Let's give it the most charitable spin. This normally comes out whenever it turns out the Republicans don't support every little leftist government policy that they hope will actually help people. Now, it may be. This is an argument about abortion. So I'm not going to try to argue against universal preschool, all right? But let me just point out that whenever, say, a Republican says, I don't think the Head Start program actually achieved what its intended outcome, and therefore we shouldn't fund it, it's not because that guy is only pro-birth. It's because he has a deep intellectual disagreement that may be right, may be wrong, about the efficacy of government policy. So in their private lives, they're not just pro-birth. When it comes to policy, they're not just pro-birth either, though they may disagree with leftist policy prescriptions. So what are we looking at here? They are twisting language to form what we call the slogan fallacy. Now, a slogan isn't always fallacious, but it is. This comes from Peter Kreeft, who wrote a book called Socratic Logic. I really highly recommend you read it. It has a terrible cover, but it's got incredible content. He calls the slogan fallacy anytime somebody offers a proposition that is intended not to get you to think critically, but to get you to emotionally knee-jerk react against what's being said. That's what's intended when they say probirth. I'm Ryan Martin. This is Unsafe Media, where I help you respond with wisdom and virtue to the ideas and movements that are shaping our age. If you want to support this work, it's all listener supported. So if you want to support us one time, it's on Venmo or ongoing on Patreon. Just check the link tree down in the description. Otherwise, check out these other videos, like, subscribe, share, all the other stuff that everybody tells you to do. I'll see you next time.